I don't know. I thought a while on if I should do this video because I know this attorney. This attorney is somebody I know. Now, I don't know him personally. We never hung out together in the whole nine, but I seen him in court damn near three, four times a week at one point. When I was a young attorney starting out, because this attorney, had a few years in the game over me. And I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. When it comes to it's certain things, it's very few things in life that I'm arrogant about, but I'm a little arrogant about my ability to practice law. So, and as all attorneys should be, if you get an attorney who isn't confident and borderline arrogant with their ability to practice law, you need to run the hell the other way and find new counsel ASAP. What's going on? I'm Marcus. Welcome to the channel, The Debt Free Dad, where we're following my family's financial freedom journey as we look to become first generation millionaires. Y'all know I always got to throw out the disclaimer. I'm a licensed attorney, but this isn't legal or financial advice. Just giving y'all my opinion and take on things and letting y'all know what's going on in the household of the Debt Free Dad. Let's talk about impressing other people real quick. Impressing other people is one of those things that I just think personally we all have a desire to want people to like us and want people to appreciate us. I think especially when you're young. When you're younger, I think that you really judge yourself based on how your peers perceive you. As you get older, you realize that you got less what's to give about certain things, so you really don't care as much about people's opinion, but it's definitely something that can impact how you move and what you do. So, I mean, just trying to impress people, you'll be really amazed at the things that people do in their lifetime that they did only because they wanted to look good in front of someone else, or they wanted to have someone think about them a certain way. So today we're going to take a unique break. I'm going to give my take on an attorney who committed over $2 million worth of fraud. Credit card fraud, bank fraud, and PPP fraud was also thrown up in there. But this attorney was somebody who I saw in the courtroom and actually impressed me. Your boy don't get impressed that easily, but they were real savvy litigator. They had the gift of gab. To a big thing and a big part of being an attorney, especially if you're a trial attorney, is you have to look the part. They just kind of had that look. She had that look that just kind of exuded confidence. And on a couple of occasions, hey, when I was a young buck in the game and I had questions, she was one of those people that I could just snatch up in the hallway and be like, yo, real quick, tell me what you think about A, B, C, D, and E. And she'd drop some jewels on me. So, all of my experiences I had with this young lady were amazing experience. She gave me jewels on occasions. And that's just kind of how attorneys were, especially if you were a young buck cutting your teeth. You could really stop anybody in the courtroom or in a hallway and ask, how should I approach something? And they'll hook you up. They'll give you some advice. They'll drop some gems on you. So, I was a little drawn on like, man, do I want to talk about this particular topic? Because, this is someone that, I had a working relationship with. Even though it wasn't a major working relationship, we did have interactions. But then the other thing is, let's just keep it a buck. Once a person is involved in this type of conduct, is already out in the public sphere. There's already news articles. So let's just talk about what happened. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to give my take on it. Now, before we dive in, this is probably, my area of expertise is fraud investigations, especially as it relates to, criminal and government programs. I, as an attorney, have investigated and assisted in the prosecution of healthcare fraud, Medicaid, Medicare, the TARP Act. I mean, if you think of a federal government program out there, I probably investigated some of the conduct. And the reason that, is good that, somebody like me will always have a job, because anytime the government creates a program where they put money out there, like the CARES Act that created all the PPP loan, or the housing bailout that created the TARP loans and the TARP money out there. Anytime the government puts money out there in the ether, there's always going to be someone who's trying to take advantage. So the big win is that, when the government creates these programs, a lot of times they also create an inspector general's office, and their sole job is to identify fraud, waste, and abuse with a particular government program. So, if there's a IRS, Department of Justice, you think of a government agency, there's an Office of Inspector General out there. If you think of a government program that provides funds to people in any capacity, there's a government program, there's an inspector general's office out there. There's people whose sole job, literally, like, my sole job was to solely look and identify healthcare providers, doctors, hospital who were committing healthcare fraud. So there's people out there, that's all they get paid to do. So that's kind of my background, that's kind of my skill set. I have about Mm, I'd say probably about 10 years of experience in, investigations and fraud prosecutions and the whole nine. So let's talk about it. The attorney's name is Tiffany Russell, an attorney. She worked out of North Carolina. We're going to talk a little bit about what the scheme was and how these things happen. So she was an attorney who had her own practice in North Carolina. I'm gonna actually take some of the language directly out of the DOJ press release. It looks like the sentencing was supposed to occur sometime last month. I'll guarantee you it probably got postponed. But it says Tiffany Russell was originally indicted in November of 2020 for conspiracy to commit bank fraud, access device fraud, and misuse of a social security number. According to the indictment, Russell and her co conspirators applied for loans and credit cards with social security numbers that were not issued to them by the Social Security Administration. And by doing this, they were able to open accounts. They were able to open accounts with various financial institutions that allowed them to obtain things such as BMWs and homes, and in 2016 a butt augmentation surgery, which that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day that I might touch on later on. But so essentially, and this is common, people can obtain social security numbers. They got things called the dark web where people can go and pay to obtain other people's identity. They were opening credit cards, accounts. They also were doing what something was referred to as washing their credit in, general terms. And essentially what that means is, you open an account, you use that account, you charge that account up, but then you call and reach out, contact the credit bureau. And once you contact the credit bureau, you essentially raise a fuss and say that, hey, my identity was stolen. I wasn't responsible for these purchases. And the creditors are actually deleting these accounts off of their credit report, which was allowing her credit score to go up so she can, again, obtain, lines of credits, which she didn't have the income necessarily to support. There was other things where she used. There was other instances where she used false bank statements that inflated her liquid assets so that she can get mortgages and get lines of credit to be able to use to buy things. Now it's interesting because it says, one of the things that it says up front is that, she had bad credit. But it says it was something to the tune a multi-year conspiracy where she obtained more than $2.5 million from 12 financial institutions and the United States Small Business Association. So let's just talk about the credit card stuff first. Then we're going to move over to, the Small Business Administration stuff. So when you're talking about, credit card fraud and those type of things, just some of the things that were being purchased. I mean, think about it: butt augmentation surgery, BMWs, actually using the proceeds in these fraudulent schemes to purchase properties, which were rental properties in various places throughout the United States. Now, first and foremost, it does say that she had co-defendants, but the co-defendants really, in my opinion, didn't get any play in the media. It just kind of mentioned their name, but it kind of brushed it off. So, just a point of reference out there. If there's a group of individuals, and this is just based on how I've maneuvered and how I think most prosecutors would maneuver and how I've maneuvered in the past. If there's a group of people out there committing any type of fraud, I don't care if it's healthcare, PPP, committing any type of fraud, if within that group of people you are the professional, so if it's three people committing fraud and one person within that group is a doctor, an attorney, a government official, a government employee, that's going to be the person who I'm going to really want to hang out to dry. Just because, think about it, when you do these type of investigations, one of the first things you look for is people background, their training, their education. You look for their ability to understand the nuances of the law, and you look for their ability and their means to actually create and generate an income from a legal revenue stream. So if I'm looking at a group of people who committing fraud, the person who has the most letters behind their name, JD, MD, PhD, BS, whatever your if whoever has the most credentials, that's going to be the person who I want to make sure I throw the book at. That's going to be the person that I'm going to try to get the other people to flip up, because that's going to be the target. That's going to be the target that you're going to make your bones off of. That's going to be the target, the high value target, so to speak. And so now credit card fraud is a pain in the you know what. And I'm gonna just be honest with you. If you commit any type of credit card fraud with opening these false accounts, it's a crime. Your ass probably gonna get thrown in the clink. Okay, let's just put that out there. But those type of crimes take longer to develop. Think about it. If I'm opening fraudulent accounts at banks, Wells Fargo, if I'm opening fraudulent accounts at all these credit institutions, and I'm making these purchases, if I'm doing all of this stuff, the person who's responsible for investigating activity like that works at the financial institution. So it creates a much longer process before that type of fraud is even going to get to a prosecutor. You have to have an investigator at the financial institution, at the bank, to look and identify, wait a minute, something's wrong. Then they'll open up an investigation. They'll go do the investigation. Then once they got all of the facts and they say, okay, we think we got enough here where we know that person A is committing financial institution fraud in this particular capacity. The next thing they're going to have to do is they're going to have to take that, all of that facts, all of that documents, all of those interviews, whatever the hell they did, they're going to have to take that and present it to a prosecutor. And the prosecutor is going to have to agree to ultimately prosecute it, which he may or may not do, depending on what the loss amount is, depending on how many cases he may have on his plate that have a higher precedent, as opposed to what the bank is referring to him to actually investigate. Even though they're crimes, even though, trust me, they will get to them, it just generates and takes a longer process to follow before you're actually, getting an indictment, getting a prosecution, and going through that. Now, let's forward to the Small Business Association fraud. It says in the article that of the $2.5 million fraudulent scheme, 1 million was in PPP loans for the CARES Act. Now, let's just kind of talk about this. Like I said when I started this video out, when they created the CARES Act, Congress enumerated and they set aside something like, I think it was 15 or 20,000 million, 15 or 20,000. I think it was 15 or 20 million dollars. I can't remember the actual dollar amount, but they set aside millions of dollars solely to create an agency, an inspector general, who would find and identify fraud, waste, and abuse associated with the CARES Act. That means all the PPP stuff out there. So you think about this. You got millions of dollars to create a government agency of attorneys, investigators, auditors, support staff, all of these resources solely to look at PPP fraud. So I guarantee you it's probably more likely than not, once the PPP fraud was tied in, that elevated this thing and sped everything up exponentially. They said, because now that they got the PPP fraud as an agency, that's all they're looking at. They don't give a damn about the credit card stuff. They're solely looking at PPP fraud. Once they find that, the next thing you're going to do is say, well, let's take a look at the entire ether and see what exposure this person has. So think about it. They were able to identify and find the PPP fraud. Then they probably also were able to reach out and find the credit card fraud. So now that they got all of this, it can bundle up all those charges. And you know how they do it. Y'all know how the game go. You throw on a bunch of charges. Most prosecutors, all prosecutors, well, I ain't gonna say all, most prosecutors aren't most a good prosecutor. I ain't gonna say most. A good prosecutor wouldn't charge something that he couldn't prove. These facts that they have here are clearly, patently obvious. They have, reports. I wouldn't be shocked if they have information and statements from some of the co-conspirators as well. But let's talk about this. It talked about in the article where her credit wasn't that great, and the butt augmentation, the BMW. And I will tell you, as an attorney, there's certain professions out there where your appearance and what you have can directly impact your income that you make. Let's just think about it. I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. I know that the type of car that an attorney has, or the type of office that an attorney has no bearing on their ability to actually practice law. They could be driving a 1989 Toyota Corolla and be the nicest attorney in the game. But the way society works, and y'all already know, perception is reality for most people. So if you see someone who's dressing nice, you see someone who has a nice car, who has the plush office, someone who's exuding that confidence, they look the part, they talk, they say everything the right way, it is going to impact the clients you pull. You're probably going to get more high end clients because clients like that guy is a winner, that girl is a winner. They know how to do. They must be successful. They must be knocking out all these cases because look at their car, look at their office. So an attorney is one of the. It's like a an attorney is kind of like a rapper. You know what I mean? Like unless you build your brand off of being a skateboard rapper, most rappers is gonna have too many chains, too many watches, too many cars because it gives off that perception of I'm winning out here in these streets. I'm doing it big, and people buy in to the perception. They buy into what they see. It works the exact same with attorneys. So a lot of times, and especially if you're a solo practitioner or you have your own practice, the competition out there is real. All attorneys aren't out here balling, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, 200, $300,000, getting big ass bonuses. That's not the reality of it. I talked about it when I first started my first 3 years as an attorney. I think I made like under $44,000 each year my first 3 years practicing as an attorney. And that was as a government attorney. So for solo practitioners, if it's just you and you cutting your teeth, it could be hard out there. So how you present what you have can directly impact the type of client, the status of client that you get. So there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure for people to just look like they winning, to feel like they winning, to exude confidence. And so, I think it was two parts. One part is you want to look the part and you want to impress people. And the other part is just greed. I'll tell you, when you're looking and doing investigations, most fraud, most criminal activity related to fraud, a lot of times it occurs because of a mistake. Let's say I'm a doctor. I'll give you an example. I'm a doctor, and every month I have to bill Medicaid for the services that I did that will be reimbursed by the Medicaid program, right? So let's say I'm a dentist and I did a root canal. I should bill a root canal as procedure code A1. Procedure code A1 is for a root canal. And when you do a root canal, let's say there's three things that have to be done. There has to be a tooth extraction, there has to be something else and something else. Three things that have to be done to do a root canal. All of those three procedures are in that procedure code A1. But I'm new, I don't really know what I'm doing like that. So instead of billing that root canal as A1, I bill for each of those three procedures separately. I bill for the tooth extraction, I bill for the actual root canal work that I'm doing. I bill for those three steps separately as procedure code B, C, and D. Because you can do them separately, but for purposes of Medicaid, they're supposed to be all billed under this A1 category, which includes everything that's done with the root canal. And I've seen this happen. That's why I'm giving this example. A doctor accidentally, they call it unbundling. All of these services were supposed to be bundled under this $1 amount, but you accidentally made a mistake and unbundled those three services that make up a root canal. Now you get paid three times, one, two, three. And when you realize, like, damn, that's a mistake. I wasn't supposed to bill it like that. I was supposed to bill all of them in this one code, but instead I separated all of them. But a lot of times, what doctors would do is they would look and be like, damn, the feds didn't catch it. And, I get more money if I bill for each of these procedures as opposed to billing for this one root canal that includes all of these one procedures in it. So, what I'm going to do is just keep making this same mistake because always a police siren, right? But what I'm going to do is keep making this same mistake because it was a mistake. It didn't get caught and they probably aren't really looking at me. So a lot of time fraud occurs as a mistake. A mistake is done. The mistake results in a person getting higher compensation from the government than what they should. Then by the time they identify the mistake, they say, you know what? I'm gonna keep on sliding this same mistake through because I'm getting more money doing it that way. And so there's a lot of pressure out there to perform. It's two parts. One, we can't care about how people view us, especially as a damn adult. Kids, that's one thing. Like, I know my son is going to care about what his peers think because he's a teenager. Even though I tell him, man, whatever your peers think is going to be irrelevant in 6 weeks, let alone 6 years. You're not even going to remember half of these people name. You're not even going to remember half of these people name. But one, people always fall into trouble when you're trying to impress others with what you have, and trying to show, hey, I got this, I got that. I mean, most people don't give a damn. And a lot of times, if you grind and hustle, there's other ways you can get this bread up. There's a lot of things you can do, especially, if you're a professional, as opposed to commit fraud. Because, like I said, think about it. If my whole job is to sit in the office all day for 8 hours a day and find out who's committing fraud and how they do it, and is hundreds of people who work with my agency, hundreds of people, probably thousands of people who work in my agency, and their only job is to do that. So it's going to be hard to get away, especially if it's a government program. I just wanted to just talk about it. At the end of the day, like I said, this sister was really smart. I was actually impressed with her skill set as an attorney. But greed and trying to impress people, trying to live beyond what your capabilities are, man, it always ends bad. It'll end with you being broke. It'll end with you being over leveraged, or worst case scenario, it'll end like this sister who was smart and I thought was a very sharp attorney, but now she looking at a potential of 33 years in federal prison for fraud, just trying to impress people, just trying to live a lifestyle that she wanted. I just wanted to talk about this. I thought it was interesting. I put the link to the DOJ press release below so y'all can see it. But I mean, like, let's just think about it. You buying houses, cars, butt augmentations, like, damn, like that's crazy. And I mean, think about it. We all pay for that. If you're a taxpayer and somebody stole from PPP to do whatever with it, butt implants, BMW cars, Ferrari, Maseratis, whatever it is, that's all taxpayers' money. That's all stuff that every time when you see your check a little light because the government hit you up, when somebody steals from those programs, they really taking money out of your pocket, so to speak. So you definitely want to make sure that the money that comes out of your check actually goes to the stuff that it should go to. That's all. I wanted to just give a quick video, do something different, talk about a little bit of fraud, give my take on it. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. As always, y'all take care, be blessed, love y'all, peace.